welcome back to Nottingham. It is the final game of our coverage this Saturday, and it's from the women's division. Scram from Scotland versus Bristol women. I'm Hannah Pendlebury in the commentary pavilion with the inimitable Benjamin Rees. I've just run up from the pitch from getting those last-minute scribbly notes, and we're going to have a heck of a game. This women's division so wide open here, Benji. It really is. Both of these sides in probably just about the most open division I've ever seen. There's any one of 6-7 teams coming into the weekend that could have potentially taken home the crown, and both of these sides would have maybe been thinking that it could have been them. Certainly Bristol, one of the favourites going into this weekend, but it hasn't really gone to plan for both sides so far today. Both sides have won one game and lost two. Both sides beating Ladybugs relatively comfortably, 11-5 for Bristol, 9-4 for Scram. And then tight losses to Sick, 10-8 for Scram and 9-6 for Bristol. And also to Gravity, of course, coming over from Dublin, won both of those games handily, 12-6 against Bristol and 11-7 against Scram. So what this means essentially is that whoever loses this game, their national title hopes are done and dusted. Well, both sides are missing some key units. Bristol, of course, lacking Molly Wedge, and Alice Beeching's trying to sort of play a bit of replacement, but she's carrying an ankle injury, so she might be doing some sort of, hobble sprinting around the field. And of course, Shona and Rona, the long-time Scottish names, not appearing for Scram. And this is the last hurrah for Lulu Geddy-Boyd, who will be moving to Cardiff shortly. Well, interesting. So she could be potentially here playing against a new team the team she'll be playing for next season. Indeed, I mean, who knows, she might actually end up playing for Bristol. That is the local big women's team. Of course, Cardiff Storm are a sort of up-and-coming outfit out of that area, but she's trying to do a little bit less, helping her teammates shine here on the pitch, although she is fond of saying that Scram is a dictatorship, not a democracy. And who's at the top of that? Well, we'll certainly find out, but Boyd is definitely a big name for Scram, coming out of Ireland, initially big handler, but at the moment it's going to be Carla Link with the disc in hand. The World Games athlete in Alabama this summer finds Kantorovich upfield. Not really much movement in front, players flooding through now. A nice easy grab on the far side. Expands it around, and that's a lovely break into the end zone, and first goal, a nice clean hold for Bristol. Yeah, don't be fooled by the fact that, Bristol, maybe they're not at full strength. They're still pretty strong, and you're seeing it there. Kantorovich, the player who's represented Great Britain on the international stage as well. And you see her there getting the big grinder underneath. Looking for the reset here in the centre of the pitch. Sees the defender kind of a little bit too far inside, gets the throw out nice and early, floats it up for Lewis to track down and reel in with the left hand, and then she absolutely guns this into the end zone. I mean, that's not so much throwing it as ripping it in there. Yeah, a slightly controversial option, but it's effective and quite nice to watch back on the replay there. So off to an easy start for Bristol. But in terms of the offense that we've seen them put together so far this tournament, I don't know if you've been able to see much of kind of the games around the fields, but I have to say, against Gravity, Bristol's offense wasn't looking the strongest. Even the points they were getting in were a little bit meh. Yeah, it feels like certainly they're not firing on all cylinders so far this weekend, and then maybe that's to be expected when you're missing one of your biggest downfield threats, and actually, to be fair, one of the best, certainly deep players in the country, best all-around players in the country as well. So it's understandable that it will take some time to adjust. You're moving players into slightly different roles, making someone who was, maybe they'll be, a second or third option. All of a sudden they're going to be kind of patrolling things, really initiating downfield. And the question is, can those players make the step up? Well, they certainly have a heckin' lot of them. I think they've got about a line and change extra over Scram, who are missing some of their World Clubs players. Of course, both these teams did finish pretty close to each other in that group at sort of towards the mid-section of the standings for the GB teams at Cincinnati. An error on the far side for Vicky Jones, though, is going to give the disc to another chance for Bristol, and they're going to punch it in straight away. Lyndon Chiang with the goal. Familiar seeing her on these fields, of course, very useful target for Bristol in the final, where of course they won back in 2021.
Yeah, I was very impressed with her performance in that game, actually. And not just that game, over the weekend. Certainly one of the players who caught my eye, and seems that she's backing that up here in this game so far.
Well, Bristol was saying ahead of this match that they wanted to come in with lots of energy, get loud and support each other. It seems like it's not quite necessarily, you know, they're not in 6th gear yet, but it seems like there's a good cruise so far, but perhaps Scram coming up under a little bit too much pressure.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend. It's been a good weekend for the for one half. I say one half. There's actually a pretty decent Scottish contingent representing here across the 3 divisions, and Alba made their first national final in the Open division, so we'll see them tomorrow. And yeah, they're trying to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of transfer that sort of energy and enthusiasm into their good friends on the women's side as well.
Absolutely, of course, Scram and Alba being formed after Black Eagles decided they wanted to play some single gender division action. Of course, they appeared in 2018 at the World Club Championships in Ohio, and both sides then qualifying out for this rotation just gone. Fozzard puts a nice high one around, just about reeled in. Great stuff from Henry.
That was tight coverage, but they just about got it to work.
Big ball going up, but that's going to be a shot too far. Alexandra Hiley there, the intended target.
I mean, really unleashed that one. No fear whatsoever, and Hiley had separation, but just one of those occasions where you can take a little bit off. You don't always need to go at full throttle.
Well, it's interesting, when the teams were warming up, the wind had sort of just finally appeared on the show pitch in a meaningful way. It's been a very still condition sort of here today in Nottingham. We've seen a lot of zone though, surprisingly.
Yeah, I have seen a little bit. I think it's something now that more teams are happy just throwing into their arsenal, not only when it's kind of horrible conditions, but just more generally to try and stop initial pool plays and just switch things up a little bit.
Absolutely, missed opportunity there. Kilsby going high with the single hand, just toppling to the floor, and a short field for Lulu Getty-Boyd, who's striding towards the disc. Nice inside shot straight away. Holly across to Holmes. It's going to be a high one, but redemption is found in the deep space in the end zone. Audrey Mélenchon-Fournier collects.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure that's entirely what Hills was thinking with that, but it seemed to work. It's also really nice to see our ULTI.TV comrades doing well out there on the field. I think what you have to do is you have to credit the kind of the awareness there of Mélenchon-Fournier. Just kind of keeping their eyes up, making sure that if there's any overthrow, any tips, or even if it's just complete underneath and you need a next pass, that someone's ready and waiting for it.
Absolutely. Well, it's, you know, it's the nature of a team sport. I love this head cock here from Tanya Fozzard as she releases that one.
This was the turnover back. It's a really tricky grab there for Kilsby, kind of reaching the discs a bit behind her. She's also trying to find out what the next option might be. Here Humes looks in field, doesn't like it, sees the pass down the line, maybe puts a little bit too much air underneath it. And Mélenchon-Fournier is there to spare her Humes and Henry's blushes.
We do like teammates like that kind of, you know, just come to your rescue and clean up when you've done something maybe a little bit rogue.
Yeah, the kind of ones, they're just dependable and reliable, and you can set your watch to them. Not literally, of course. Humans are not timepieces, but you know what I mean.
No, but we are very good at homeostasis, so, you know, we're reliable and dependable in that way.
Good word. I like that.
So, Bristol on the charge on offence. Carla Link with a lot of momentum behind that one, just a little stumble. But nice fast movement, Beeching now near side. Centres back to Link. Cordelia Lodge, the number 16, has been an anchor for Bristol today as their offence hasn't always been clicking. but such an experienced player on this Bristol side, been with the club pretty much. I think she might be a complete monogamist for Bristol, you know. Nick thinks about the end zone. Looking around for options. Nice slicer to Beeching. Good movement across now. Oh, a high lefty release to the back of the end zone and collected by Natalie Oldfield for the goal. That was a nice piece of offence.
Yeah, relative newcomer on the Frisbee circuit, Oldfield. Still only been playing for about 3 years or so. So very kind of young and a very nascent Frisbee career so far, but proving very valuable both last year and this year as well. Just not, sometimes you feel like you always need to be doing something, but what Oldfield does well is just sits in that space and just trusts that eventually her teammates will find that pass through. They'll be able to activate that space, and Mudd kind of just pops that one over the top and floats it, and Oldfield tracks it down to make it 3-1.
Absolutely. And you say a younger player, only 22 years old, and this is her second season with Bristol.
First one went pretty well, given that, you know, just won a national championship, as you do.
I know, sometimes you sort of, you know, have to be, as a player, it's difficult to see people, you know, get pulled into a team and sort of taken to that level. But the nice thing is that Oldfield, even though she's very young, has been quite a key part of Bristol's success these past 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think something that Bristol do quite well is they really ingratiate the younger players into that system. They're constantly kind of bringing newer players through. It doesn't feel like there's ever a huge sea change of personnel at one point. They've kind of got that steady pipeline coming through, and yeah, working out how to give younger players, you know, pitch time and important roles.
Absolutely, and you have to credit that to, of course, their long-standing legacy of players who've always maintained second teams, always really tried to do that, and they sort of embedded it into the culture of the team.
Yeah, try and create as many playing opportunities as possible. Because turns out that's how you get better, by actually, you know, going out there and playing.
Indeed, meaningful match opportunities is what really brings that top-level elite play. An uncontested foul, though, centre of the field. I think possibly a defensive foul.
Yeah, no, sorry, Hocking, excuse me, just coming through the back there, but quickly accepted the foul on Boyd.
And Hocking actually a martial artist as well, taekwondo player, or, well, I don't know if you play taekwondo, but...
Yeah, good question.
We'll have to ask later.
Practitioner.
But an opportunity here for Scram to keep themselves in this game. Simpson is going to be overthrown, though, nicely picked out of the sky. Oh, but that's a dirty release. Is it going to work? Yes, it is. Chang underneath it. Moving around now, Durbin. Playing the small ball alongside Flissman. Nice work across now. Lily Morris back to Durbs. A little bit of a low one, but nicely collected by Mann. Stays on top. Just giving and going. Not really much happening in the backfield. Close cutting from Hocking. She's going to just squeak it onto the far side of the end zone. It's going to be called out of bounds as she immediately tosses the disc to the floor. Fantastic spirit there from Hocking.
Yeah, just didn't necessarily have the best perspective, or did and just knew that she wasn't in. But there are a lot of players right there, and it was a really tight window. The Bristol offense, they just seem to be resetting it so comfortably generally, and it was a little bit strange that they forced it there, because I don't think they really needed to. Someone's come off on an injury stoppage, it looks like.
So yeah, with that offense, you can see the cut when, I don't know if it's going to be this one, but there's the cut that Hocking makes in, sort of really closes up the space really tightly there, sort of just about leaves herself a little bit of a window, but it'd been nice to see her swing around instead.
Yeah, I think there is space for that cut at the front of the end zone, but it would really have to be speared in there.
Yeah, the shaping on it's difficult to make. But the opportunity is now given back to Scram. Can they make the most of it? The full stretch to go. Boyd's going to open up the backhand. That's a beautiful shot. There is a bit of separation, but the defender's closing in, but cannot deny Alexandria High with the goal.
Hiley's got that long reach and those long legs as well. Just really kind of motors along. churns up the ground rapidly and just slows up a little bit at the end, because it's so easy to think I need to be going at full speed, but judged it well, and by kind of slowing up a little bit early, you're creating that box. It gives yourself space to go out and attack it, and it makes it so difficult for that defender to come round. And we know that Boyd's got the deep throws in her arsenal, and if you just stand a little too far off on the force, she's certainly happy to take advantage of it. And an expertly executed box there.
Yeah, I rate that boxing out pretty highly on that one. I really like the shape as well that Boyd put on that disc, really stepping around the mark and sort of, arcing that backhand across. And to do that with that height and that length shows just the power she has in her core. So just the one break in this game. Bristol having gone on those 2 unanswered to get us started. Now trading this one out. And I think there were some naysayers ahead of this weekend, Benji, that saw who was going to be on the stream schedule and may have put some spurious comments that Scram might not be in this. But they're very much in these stages in the game. They're in control. And
I know that the transitive property does not apply to Ultimate. I know it, but you look at the scores that these two teams have had in their game so far, and it does seem like it should be a very even matchup. And so far, that's how it's playing out.
At the moment, it generally feels pretty chilly. Oh, but that's a curious disc that's going to completely overshoot Joe Lewis. Bit of a bad miss from Randalls there. Chance
to put in this break here for Scram and get us back on serve.
And Randalls, not, I believe, a usual sort of player for Bristol, coming alongside. Obviously very, very experienced, played GB under-20s and juniors above. But knocking on the doorstep. Oh, that's a great bit of complete separation. Miscue on the defense for sure, but Scram are happy to use and abuse, and that's the break back. We are on serve.
Yeah, I'm not sure quite what happened there, because obviously you see why teams like to go with that really tight vertical stack, especially when you get to the end zone, because you give yourself these two huge spaces to attack on each side. But there, just, you know what, there's a player wide open, so we'll just good field awareness. It's kind of a little bit against the flow of traffic. Some players go one way, just kind of leaking out towards the backside. I think for a little bit there's going to be a switch that is potentially passed off, and they don't pull the trigger on it, and it means that you can see that that's actually one of those situations where if you pick it up nice and early, you can take it. Again, if you're very vocal and communicative with it, it can work. But if you hesitate a little bit, then not only is the opportunity for the switch gone, but also it's the player who potentially was marking there originally, is they've kind of slowed up a bit, because like, oh, are we going, are we not? And that means that whoever they were initially marking also has more space to get free.
So one that might be watched back with gritted teeth depending on the results of this women's pool play match. Of course, as we already said at the outset, the loser of this game will see their chances of a gold medal at the end of Sunday's play taken away and become a foregone conclusion of just playing for placement. Of course, it is wonderful to be at Nationals.
Always is.
Bit of a shame that the women's division didn't get regionals, but we're here. We have 8 teams.
10 teams.
So 10 teams. There you go. Shows what I know.
Yeah, often as well with as it is with the open and mixed divisions, these are qualifiers for the EUCF, the European Ultimate Championship Finals, which take place later this month in Caorle, Italy. But again, with just weren't enough women's teams to run regionals for that, so teams have just applied for that directly. And here for the women's, it's literally just those medal places on the line.
So a bit more energy in this Bristol offense. Nice find to Lodge in front of the disc. Mudd now moving it to Randalls. Zone from Scram, trying to slow things down, confuse the space.
I mean, you come from Scotland, I guess you probably get used to playing a little bit of zone.
Absolutely, a nice disc from Carla Link, though, is going to be absolutely lovely. Natalie Oldfield, again, just hanging out in that deep space, making herself available.
I mean, we know the crispness of delivery that that Carla Link can possess when she's on form. And again, this time it's Oldfield just sitting in those spaces. Always something I was told is, you know, if you're playing against a zone, is that you want to be, and you're downfield, you want to be marked by 2 people or no people. Because if you're marked by 2 people, well, then someone else should be free. And if you're marked by no people, well, then you're not marked by anyone, so you're free, and that's always a good thing to do. The reason this works as well is because they're trying to split that deep player a little bit, and I think it's Harley gets sucked in towards that far side a little bit, and that means that there's plenty of space for Oldfield. So even if the throw isn't quite as accurate, it's a little bit offline, a little bit over or undercooked, you've got space to adjust. But actually, it was bang on, and Oldfield just calmly chalks it in for the end zone, just like playing catch in the park. I'll be honest, they seem like easy goals for her because there wasn't really anyone near her, but it's set up by good disc movement from the handlers, finding opportunities to create those seams in those spaces, and also just kind of being happy to not try and be involved all the time and be like, you know what, I'm fine, I'll just sit here, wait till they forget about me, and then I'll just score. Easy.
Yeah, it was an interesting one with sort of, you know, that you say that. So just happy to wait and kind of, you know, see the opportunity, wonder when the sort of, you know, teammates are going to find where you are. It almost feels like Scram need to get a bit more involved in their sideline and actually watch out for plays like that and kind of communicate with each other. They are, you know, a solid probably 7 or 8 players lighter on the ground than Bristol. We've
at least, yeah.
Uber squad to Nottingham.
And that's one of the things that bringing a larger squad has. Obviously, it can be tricky because there's a lot of mouths to feed, so to speak. It's how can you find ways to get everyone involved, making sure they're getting pitch time. But it does mean you can have a really powerful sideline presence if you get everything dialed in correctly.
And of course, there have been a couple of injuries, most notably Aina, who's a talismanic player for Scram. Hocking now, they're going to pick up the disc off that sort of easy give error. Roskowski being told to hustle forward by Hocking. He's going to overshoot Chang.
There's definitely space for that inside shot, but just the outstretched fingertips, Chang can bring it in. Tram scoots past in the background.
We love a good tram cam here on the stream at the Highfield Sports Complex. Bit of a tumble there for Claire Simpson on the near side. Been a key part of the handler set for Scram this season.
I'm just going to have a little bit of a discussion here with, I think that's Cadogan.
Well, either way, no call was made. Excellent use of hand signals there for us. You can see just the 2 players colliding there.
Yeah, I think it's just a coming together, nothing more.
It's a bit of a stumble. Oh, Lyndon Shang's looking hungry for a Callahan off of Rebecca Lindsay. She played at Masters Worlds with Masterclass.
So you're going to say Masterclass, weren't you?
I was going to say Masterclass. I'm the hybrid child of a northerner and a southerner. Can't be helped. Sometimes these things happen. Nice big boxing though to keep that one in for Eva Kate. But an interesting choice of throw afterwards. That one can't be rescued.
Just leaning back as they released it, put it way too high into the air, got so much air underneath it that it was always going to invite defensive pressure.
But credit to the Bristol defence forcing those kind of options. Kinga Roskowska finds Hocking. Oh, those inside breaks with the backhand from Hocking are just dirty, and I'm here for them. And it opens up the break side for a nice, easy score. The layout comes, but Kilsby maintains composure.
No sooner have Scram earned that break back than they surrender it into Bristol's grasp again. You mentioned there's the inside backhands, just really finding ways to carve through Scram. It's one of those things where at some point you feel that the Scots will have to make an adjustment for that, but you know, when you generally, if you come to cover that inside option, maybe get a little bit flatter, then all of a sudden you're allowing the around, and that's a massive problem. But the reason these are working is not because, I mean, obviously it's about the pivot And it's not because they're just going side to side, kind of shuttling, really utilising the full 360 degrees that you've got there. So it's not just going side to side, it's kind of coming forward, going backwards a little bit. You're creating yourself more angles to work with, really finding ways to just see those little windows and try and carve those spaces through.
Well, speaking of spaces at the moment, it really feels like the difference for Bristol is the fact that they're able to create more space between themselves and their opponents. There was a great effort to try and prevent that last score with the layout bid, but actually at the moment it feels like a lot of the turnovers that we're seeing from the Bristol offense are actually just a little bit too much on a disc, a little bit too much that, but actually where their placement is good. It just needs to be a bit better on the execution, a bit more kind of, you know, not trying to throw to the edges of their catching abilities, because they are getting free with their legs.
Yeah, and because we've seen those throwers taking those aggressive options, really stepping forward to find angles for breaks, that they're giving themselves more spaces to hit, and that's making it harder to defend.
Well, speaking of breaks, we're going to take a brief one now, but stay tuned for more action very soon.
The ultimate things in life are free, and we're keeping it that way. Subscribe to keep up with the latest games, tournaments, and community content. Share it with your team and friends, and drop a like to help spread Ultimate to more people. Spread the word, spread the love. ULTI.TV.
So women's pool play action here in Nottingham. It's the UK National Finals, or the EUCR West.
It is West, yeah.
Yes.
Although actually for women's, it's kind of not a UCR, because teams qualified or didn't qualify applied for Euros directly. For the women's, it's just UKU and Irish nationals.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I mean, yeah, it's EUCRF West, ECUR for other divisions, I suppose. But yeah, it's a shame to see the women's division just be whoever wants to turn up can play. But I don't think it will necessarily devalue that tournament. But we're here to play Frisbee.
And now we've seen some really good quality Ultimate already so far today.
We've certainly seen some tight games, and that makes good coverage, as we see a little bit of a miscommunication there. Boys, nothing she can do, just watch the disc sail over her head.
Yeah, just maybe especially late in the day. The way the women's schedules work with 10 teams is there's 2 pools of 5, so teams playing 4 50-minute games, and by the end of the day maybe you've just got a little less gas in the tank there, and that causes those kind of the errors and the miscommunications.
Well, certainly for the Scram side, they are a much smaller outfit than Bristol, not in terms of their dress size, just in terms of the number of players out on the field. That's hot defensive pressure though from Vicky Jones on Kinga Roszkowski, but she goes down a bit heavy.
Yeah, see the 2 players just engaged in a little bit of a discussion here.
Roszkowski obviously having previously played for Leeds in its heyday as the women's scene.
Yeah, former national Leeds, of course. One of the, I think they were the team that there was a huge run of Iceni championships, and Leeds managed to kind of sneak one in there and disrupt the rhythm.
Indeed, back in 2010
Good
in
knowledge.
the rubber crumb cage at Southampton Wide Lane.
I miss Wide Lane just because it was close to where we live now.
So much closer. but it's nice to be here in Nottingham. You know, it's the centre of the country.
Right, exactly. It's good to kind of make a venue that's a bit more accessible for most people, and we have been superbly looked after here at the Highfield Sports Complex.
Although ironically, the Scottish teams actually prefer Southampton because it's right next to an airport.
Oh, it is literally right next to an airport, yes. But I guess you're not too far away from East Midlands Airport here.
But it makes the calculation of, it's not great that we have to fly so much for carbon footprint purposes and eco-friendliness, but of course we make the effort because it's great to have these championships. A nice D on a high disc, and Scram have it back.
It's really tricky when you're taking those sideline shots because you've got so little margin for error.
So Boyd bring us back in. Henry immediately available.
Yeah, they've started with in that hex formation there, and they had Henry as the hat or the ISO in the centre there.
And you can see there the disc literally just pops off of the hand of Boyd as Lindsay shoots it deep now, going to work, trying to match up against Amelia Durbin. Smart switch from Scram. It's going to just throw to the back and tap down by Mélenchon Fournier.
Again, I'm not sure what Durbin was looking at there, because the disc went up and it always seemed like Scram were favourite to get there first. So again, maybe just a miscommunication, just saw something that wasn't quite there, I'm not sure. But Scram, again, will not mind, and you see it again, starting with that hex formation. They're picking it up from that wing on the far side. This time they're initiating from deep, and to be fair, I think the deep was a good look, because I think its man was fronting the cutter there, staying a little too far underneath. So the deep shot there is good to go, but I think maybe the cutter just hesitated about being so aggressive right from the off.
Yeah, that one needed to be a little bit better timed on the throw, but hey, a bit of huck and D. Bristol now having to go the full length of the field for this point. Man finds Durbin running up that far sideline. The two just happy to play ball together. Smart switching though is going to stifle that one for a moment, and running through. Excellent stuff from Mélenchon Fournier. Another defensive play. Not sure I particularly like the presumably strip call from Rona Binney.
Yeah, I must admit, I'd have to look at it again, trying to find it through that inside channel. The risk is that if you kind of laser in on it and you lock and you kind of make it clear that that's where you're looking in that field of vision, it does think that, okay, other defenders there, they can read your eyes and they can just set off into that lane, really make the channel smaller to either discourage the throw or just put that phantom pressure on. And it looks to me like Mélenchon Fournier gets there very clean.
It looks good from our angle, but of course we're not the ones in charge of the decisions on the field.
No, what we think doesn't really matter at all. It's all about the players on the field coming to a resolution they're happy with.
Absolutely. I like that, Benji. What we think doesn't really matter at all. I mean, we'll watch it in slow motion just because it was a very fun D. It does look like a little bit of a clap of doom on the shoulder of Mélenchon Fournier.
The clap of doom.
It's the clap that you make when you go to make a clap catch and you don't get the disc inside it. It's the clap of doom, you know, a hollow sound.
Unfortunately, I know it all too well.
But the call is going to be retracted after the discussion. I think we're probably both in alignment. We think that's the right call.
Yeah, that's how we saw it. But of course, the most important thing is that everyone on the field seems happy with it.
And it's important to make the call and give yourself the opportunity to have a discussion about it. So no disrespect to the call maker, Binney.
No, I fully agree. You know, make the call, have the discussion, just take a breath to think about it, and then, as we see, you can always retract it.
Folzar goes up big for the flick blade from Lindsay, but unable to come down with it under the pressure. Roskowska now darting around, big layout, but coming up short-handed. Off to the races goes Vicky Jones, trying to make herself available for Boyd. Nice step off mark, but opens up the inside. Henry now. Oh, it's just going to be a nice, easy, flat backhand to Mélenchon Fournier, who's shaping up to be a player of the match so far.
Yeah, I think another player whose name certainly rings bells from a good performance at Nationals last year. That's a couple of goals to a name and a couple of blocks as well, including on that point for a double happiness. The old bookends where you get the turn and then you punch it in at the other end as well.
Yeah, I think Mélenchon Fournier is a bit of a... She's just a refreshment. She's like a spray of lemon. You know, like this, she's invigorating and putting some energy into this Scram play that at times has looked a little bit flat.
Yeah, it's certainly not the best we've seen them, but, you know, kind of a long way into what has been a long season with a trip out to the States for Worlds. We mentioned that not everyone's available for them this weekend, so, you know, you do have, on the one hand, you know, you'd love to have all your team there and give them, and, you know, go at full strength. But on the other hand, it's a huge opportunity for players to really step up and make a name for themselves.
Absolutely, and in former seasons we have seen Aina the world-famous Iron Zone. Unfortunately, took a bit of a clattering earlier on today, and is on the sidelines in flip-flops on the far side, if you can spot her.
Oh yes, I've spotted the flip-flops. Yeah, but a little bit of a cult hero last year for them.
Absolutely. So it's great to see those players stepping up. And actually, to be fair, Willem Garnier was actually sort of tipped from the coaches as someone to sort of, having a particularly good day. And she's celebrating being re-nominated as the GB Women's Indoor Coach by scoring lots of goals. But that's a lovely shot from Carla Link, trying to track it down as Alice Beeching can't quite make it, though, nearly friendly fire afterwards. But good communication avoids the clatter of Laurel Piper.
Yeah, I think she just got caught a little too far underneath it, and when you're kind of trying to look straight up at the disc, it can be a little bit trickier to work out exactly where that edge is taking it. I still think it was a good shot, even if it wasn't reeled in, and complete miscommunication on that hammer.
Nice pot from Kantorovic. Oh, and a nice, easy, fine Joe Lewis dishing to Beeching.
I mean, that's the thing, especially when you get a kind of a slightly inexplicable turnover like that. Turnovers are never generally inexplicable, but you know what I mean. Just a complete aberration. That it's so easy to get your head down and frustrated. The classic, look at your hands, why have you betrayed me? That sort of thing. But you need to be able to flip that switch from offense to defense or vice versa. And in this scenario, Scram just heads down a little bit, and it's that kind of veteran savvy, I think, from Bristol, sensing the quick pickup opportunity. And 1-2 into the end zone, blink and you'll miss it stuff. Just as you mentioned, Kantorovic off with the pop-off to Lewis, to Beeching, and yeah, 3 players who we've seen for Bristol combined very effectively over the years, doing so once again.
Yeah, a little bit of a giveaway there. A buy one, get one free offer from Scram, but
you take those.
Still in, though. It's a 5-3 scoreline at the moment.
6-4.
Sorry, 6-4. I take that back. My stats are incorrect on my screen.
Yeah, we will blame the mysterious internet gods for that.
Well, it's still the same difference, though. 2 points.
It is indeed, and it's only 1 break. Bristol are up at the moment, so certainly we are seeing, as we expected from the form book, a nice, tight, close contest, which is what you want to see to end the game. And the game ends the day, and ends the pool play phase of the women's division here at UKU Nationals. Slightly shorter games in the women's division today. 50 minutes is the time cap because of the kind of awkward number of teams in each pool. And score cap at 13 with halves at 7, and Bristol will get the disc to take half now.
A heartbreak error from Claire Simpson, disc just popping out of her hands like a piece of toast in the morning. Durbin now popping to the far side to Rodriguez. She puts up a high one. It's going to be taken away, though, by who else but Willem Garnier.
I mean, she just had that position there nice and early and speared it out of the air.
Like a fish.
I was thinking exactly like a harpoon or a spearfisher. Just yoink.
Oh, definitely like a spearfisher, because they do the kind of like, they're looking at it before, the stare down of the fishy. Sorry, that's a bit of a visceral image in my brain for that. But yeah, just throwing into traffic, I think, that one.
There is a call under what was, I must admit, a bit of a massive humanity underneath that disc. A lot of players there. And inevitably, I think, when you get lots of players coming towards it, there is a little bit of contact. So, and again, we talked about this before. If you're not sure about something, make the call, have the discussion, and then if need be, you can retract it, accept it, whatever it is. But I always think it's better just to have the discussion, especially because that kind of helps offset any potential resentment before it even has the chance to bubble up.
Oh, and it's going to be a bit of a hand from Hocking, not able to snaffle the disc completely away, but does just enough, and she's going to collect the goal. Oh, on the second bounce! Goodness gracious me, Lisa Hocking. She just strokes the disc afterwards. Like, I nearly dropped you, darling, but it's okay, I re-caught you.
I mean, that was a little bit dicier than their previous quick pick-up possession. Rodriguez sensed the opportunity there, but maybe rushed it a little bit, again showing too much of the underside of the disc there, and it does catch a little bit of air, and it makes it perhaps a more difficult catch for Hocking than it needed to be, but good focus and concentration there to ensure that, okay, would have loved to have grabbed it cleanly, but I didn't, and there's an opportunity for a second effort here. That is 7 throw and a half-time lead.
Yeah, great defence there from Hocking. Would have been a satisfying one to have got the catch block, but
I think actually initially just gets a little bit too high and the disc maybe not quite up there as she expected, and it kind of bounces off the wrist. But yeah, good second effort.
We've all been there though, the hand immediately going to the face of, oh no, that could have gone very badly.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we've all been there, you know, you've accidentally out-jumped a disc, and I don't think I have.
Well, that will wrap us for the first half for this women's pool play match. At the moment, it's Bristol looking large in charge, leading 7-4 over Scram, but we'll find out how the rest of the game develops after a bit of a break.
The ultimate things in life are free, and we're keeping it that way. Subscribe to keep up with the latest games, tournaments, and community content. Share it with your team and friends, and drop a like to help spread Ultimate to more people. Spread the word, spread the love. ULTI.TV.
We are a group of Ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe, ULTI.TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
fund
our work to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
The ultimate things in life are free, and we're keeping it that way. Subscribe to keep up with the latest games, tournaments, and community content. Share it with your team and friends, and drop a like to help spread Ultimate to more people. Spread the word, spread the love. ULTI.TV.
We believe mixed is the best for the sport, for the world. That's why we're making a global showcase, starting in Europe, made in Amsterdam. ULTI.TV. ULTI.net.
Bristol over Scram 7-4 in this women's pool play match here at the UK National Championship Finals. Hannah Pendlebury in the commentary pavilion balcony booth with Benji Rees here. And Benji, what's your perspective on the first half of this pool play game?
Two very evenly matched sides, I think. Neither of them maybe had shown the form today that they would have hoped for, but this is a very close contest. A couple of breaks are kind of swinging things Bristol's way. It feels like a fair scoreline. Scram have really showed flashes. Certain players especially have certainly stepped up for them. But I think for Bristol, just that there's a kind of an extra bit of calmness and composure. Maybe more of a feeling that we've been here before.
Well, they certainly have. Of course, Scram were at the World Club Championships about a few weeks ago. It feels like a bit of a longer time, but you know, they definitely had the ability to punch, you know, goals in against Bristol. I think it might be a bit of a, you know, late stage of Saturday feelings. There have been some overthrows, some sort of, you know, slightly ambitious things that have come off, but there's some intensity firing on their defense, and at the moment, on this opening point of the second half, they're getting some nice flow going upfield. A little bit of sort of double cutting. Everyone trying to help out at once. Simpson going up the line, not going to be found. Nice inside shot from Fozzard. Boyd putting it around to Lindsay. Fakes the big one. Going to choose conservative. Very close dump cutting from both Fossard and Boyd, though, is going to see them come unstuck.
Yeah, the spacing's just not quite right there. It's way too drawn in, and there's no space to take advantage perhaps of a face mark. You can't really lead a receiver there because you've really got to fire it through narrow channels.
So Hocking to pick up. Roskowska, far side, has acres of separation. That's going to be a goal for sure. Brought in by Fliss. Man, the speed, and that was a lovely run down.
That was just clinical on the turn there from Bristol, picking it up and first, getting that strike cut down the sideline into the power position, and then no fear, ripping it. There is plenty of separation deep. Ripping
it and running it. I think that's one of the edges that Bristol currently have over Scram, is the sheer size of their roster. We're seeing most of the players sort of across the field appearing on the pitch and also getting stats. It's a pretty sort of even sort of weighting, apart from Joe Lewis and Natalie Oldfield, who have 2 assists and scores respectively each. It's it's looking pretty good for Bristol right now. They seem to be in charge.
Yeah, just grip it and rip it there basically from Roskowska. Just no fear. Taking advantage of the face mark again up the line. Hocking does really well, brings it in quickly, sees, yeah, we can do this. Sometimes you see players, they'll bring it in and they get into a position where, okay, I've brought the disc in, let's get ready to throw. What do I want to do here? Okay, I see a player kind of developing there. Do I want to put in a fake foot beforehand? Actually, no, you don't need to do it. If it's there, just go for it. Hurt them with pace. Not necessarily pace across the ground, although we saw there Taylor possess it on that deep strike, but just kind of your tempo, your rhythm. Feel like you're rushing your opponents.
Boyd with a nice shot into Hiley. He's going to open up an absolute beautiful backhand. It's an oil painting of a backhand, and it's going to be collected by Gemma Henry. A nice, easy score, and that's got to apply a bit of a band-aid to the wounds on Scram.
Sometimes we say scores and say that's not quite how they drew it up. No, that is exactly how they drew it up. I can imagine there are, pretty happy players and coaches on the sideline there for Scram, because this is about as, a choreographed pool play as you can get. Get the swing central to Boyd. Hiley initiates into that underneath space. The force is way too far off, and she can really step into and launch this backhand deep with immaculate form. And Jenna Henry will get on the score sheet with a goal to go along with an earlier assist as well. This is the thing with Scram, that we have seen that they are certainly capable of taking the game to Bristol at points. This is not a one-sided affair, but sometimes it feels like they can get themselves some really clean looks at times, but there are also points where they get sucked out of it and they're not as good as getting back in, as kind of working it around and resetting it until they get back into rhythm.
Absolutely, and a bit of clustering when they have been under pressure. Some strange sort of, options. There have been some miscommunications, just not quite on their form. Ahead of the game, we knew they wanted to kind of control the field position, not just run in straight lines, but be more creative, use lateral space, curious angles, try and keep the defense changing to make those opportunities for themselves. We're starting to see more of the depth of the roster, though, as they're coming out onto the field. Link, nearly a bobble in the centre, but holds onto it. Lewis, around to Roundles. Beeching coming in. Nice popping and moving against the zone. Now expanding round to Link. It's going to take the arcing shot atop the top, but it's going to be popped out of the sky. Gemma Henry with the block.
It's the same principle from Bristol. They're trying to split that deep defender, force them to make a decision, and whichever way they shade, finding the opportunity to try and find the force through to the other side.
The interesting thing about that throw choice is it didn't actually need to be the blade across. I think probably just a flat, straight laser backhand. I mean, it would have been difficult that the offensive player would have to definitely turn her hips to try and catch it, but that was going to be a safer shot if you wanted to try and hit that space.
I think the thing is, what the deep defender does well there is work out, okay, what's the tougher throw for the... If I leave someone available here, which I might have to do because I'm being split, what's the tougher throw for that handler to take on? And it is that shot over towards the break side.
Well, devastation for Henry, having gotten the block, gives it straight back with a straight drop. But Randall's now looking around for targets in the end zone. Easy finding. Lewis is going to pop it straight into the goal zone, and that's a nice piece of work. But just a hold for Bristol.
Yeah, second possession this time. I think it's Oldfield getting her 3rd goal of the game. Just a bit of a scoring machine. Real nose for the end zone. There's the hooter. That is the time cap. So we will finish this point. There's the previous deep D. Again, just trying to get that over. But just that time, we've seen sometimes players get too much air under it. This time, not quite enough. And it comes down a little bit too soon. And that allows Henry to close the gap. Although, sadly for Scram, she relinquishes possession. And they're trying to set up this isolation at the front of the end zone here, Bristol. But Randalls doesn't see it. So just resets it off to Lewis. And Oldfield eventually works her way free out of Hiley's clutches for her 3rd score. 9-5, and so we'll have 10-5 game to 11 or 9-6 game to 10.
Well, I'd quite like a 9-6 game to 10. Keeps things a bit more interesting, and certainly it should be that if Scram can pop a nice offensive hold in here.
I mean, obviously, I always want universe in every single game, but I appreciate that is exceptionally greedy.
I think we're allowed to be greedy, especially when it comes to what could have been such easily well-matched opponents here. I think Scram just haven't found the magic in this game. We've seen some really nice parts of offense and defense, but they just need to be a bit hungrier.
There was a wise philosopher who once said greed is good, right? That never got anyone into trouble.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Never. So, a swing across to Simpson. Feisty defense from Sophie Cadwagan. Nice movement upfield, though. A wee bit static. Boyd now, opens up her legs, but is going to be picked out by... Oh, no, look at the celebration there. I love the effort of Ruth Taylor, just just sauntering away, having got the poach block.
There's that heads-up defense that we've talked about earlier. Yeah, you see it.
It's joyful.
It was the question there of the thrower for Scram just really locked on to Boyd and overthrew it, but Melon Fournier will get another block.
Well, it was an interesting choice from Hocking, sort of dialed it in for Roskowska, but she hadn't really set off. But Boyd's going to absolutely rip it to Melon Fournier.
They're not afraid to call her number.
Well, she's on speed dial for this Scram side. A lovely inside shot, and it's another goal for the 84. Audrey, pat yourself on the back.
Yeah, that's 3 goals, at least 3 blocks, maybe more. She is just having an absolute stormer. Even if Scram don't come out on the winning side, she's put her name right up there, I think.
Well, as we said, she's going to be appearing indoors. She's going to be coaching the GB women's side. So clearly an experienced individual. Wily even, she picks off that disc that was intended for the upline. It's a difficult one to do, to poach off the stack and make a clean bid like that. But we like to see it when it's good. And so it is going to be a game to 10. Can Scram do it? It's a little bit of a steep hill, not quite a mountain, not a cliff.
Right, but they're from Scotland. They're from the Highlands.
Exactly.
They should be used to this sort of thing.
Oh, what's the name for the... I'm trying to think of what the name for the Highlands sort of, like what they call the hills. The Mull? I'll think of it later.
Hills are bends, aren't they?
Possibly.
Like Ben Nevis? No, genuinely, I think that's actually the thing.
Well, let us know in the chat if you know what we're trying to claw at as we reach the latter stages, the business end of this women's pool play game. Of course, this is to stay alive for the dreams of a UK gold medal placement. And a bit of bling to take back home. Link, the 17, core handler, having now moved away from Bristol. I believe this is her last season in red and black.
How much she would love to propel them to another national title to cement her legacy.
Absolutely, but Hannah Randall's high hands but unable to grasp the disc. Matched up with, by number 29 actually, Freya Elliott, who recently moved to Scotland from the South Coast, formerly played for Southampton Skunks. Has been going to work for this Scram side in this World season for them. And can they put this one in?
It's always good to see players kind of making those big moves and still finding ways to play top-level ultimate and yeah, really get their teeth stuck in.
Sure, looking for options. A miscommunication with Elliott, though, is going to give the disc back to Bristol. That looked really nice, especially that pass from highly around the mark, using her long limbs. Randall's going to overthrow Link, though. In a tighter game, I think probably if we see this one go further to the wire, we'd see a layout from Carla Link, but now's not the time.
Yeah, I think if she'd gone for it, it would have been in vain. So I think maybe, you know, the kind of the risk reward of that, just doing the cost benefit analysis.
Oh, lovely pop from Henry's going to set it up, and the layout grab for the score. Oh my goodness, Scram getting us a little bit of excitement in the later stages, but can they use it to channel some momentum and get us to universe points? It's their first break this half and second for the game.
Yeah, Vicky Jones has not given this one up for dead, certainly. You're seeing it here, taking advantage of a second miscue that point for Randalls. And that's a beautiful low release, puts a bit of air underneath it. Jones, you can see that she commits to it nice and early, and it really is full extension, but wraps that right hand around it, brings it in, does really well as well to maintain possession on landing, because it can be so easy to ground strip yourself there. But Vicky Jones has brought Scram a little bit closer.
Well, to do the appropriate celebration for a Scram layout goal, you've got to do some finger guns.
That's what I heard, yeah.
It's they're sort of, you know,
I like how we did that on stream, as if people weren't aware of what finger guns were.
Well, you know, you've got to be careful with your finger guns. You know, you got to treat them with the respect that they need. You know, they're.
I mean, I've heard about the right to bear arms. What about the right to bear fingers?
That's an interesting point. We'll pick up on that later. There has been a rather loud celebration from behind us on the field. I don't know exactly what they're on. Possibly the other women's pools. So we will put our spies in motion and bring you that information, because it's pertinent, because that game's definitely not being streamed. Yeah,
the format of this women's division is the top team in each pool goes straight through to the semi-finals. The second team in one place pool plays the third place team in another in basically a quarter-final, and then you have the semis and the final tomorrow afternoon. So, you know, not finishing top of the pool, as long as you're in that top three, you've still got a shot.
So Beeching going to overthrow Lodge. Is this the opportunity that Scram need to get another break?
Lodge had already started to kind of clear through. Oh, that's risky.
But it's going to come off. Aitken centres back to Boyd, and she dishes into a sneaky end zone ninja. Nobody saw her. And Mrs. One is getting ever closer to being universe. You asked for it, Benji, and Scram are delivering.
They're taking their opportunities. Bristol, again, they've been just there's miscommunications that we didn't really see from them that much early on. They've crept into their game, and Scram have found their form at the right time to punish them. This time you can see Lodge is already coming through, but I think Beeching is expecting the plant and turn back into the backfield. Scram pick up quickly. It's Boyd. Finds Kay. This felt so risky through traffic, but really good heads-up play there from Aitken, and maintaining focus, dumping it off, clearing out, and then finding the receiver leaking out on that far sideline. It looks like it's Logie for the score. There are only 1 point down now. Comeback? Universe? Who knows?
It's definitely an interesting situation that sits in front of us. I think, you know, we didn't fully close the book on this game, but it looked like a foregone conclusion when the hooter went that Bristol were sitting in charge. But perhaps, you know, Scram has just sort of come over to the side and undone some laces.
You know, we were speaking about that big cheer going on one of the pitches behind us in the other women's pool.
Tell us at the end of this point, Benji, because right now this could be the closure of Scram's hopes. Beeching fires it upfield. Oldfield now, with the disc in her hands, rarely outside the end zone. Lodge to Hocking. Thinks better of the upline, goes for a nicer round to Link. Can she put the chain together? Hocking given acres of room, and she's going to use it for a nice backhand to Kantorov. Just inches away. Oh, and just behind her back, Carla Link collects, and that is the win for Bristol. They managed to avoid a universe point situation and keep their medal hopes alive.
Wow, they have... Scram gave them a hell of a fight there, but they just about held on, and that sets up some mouth-watering games for us tomorrow. The big news from the women's division game that happened behind us, by the way, is that LMU versus Iceni, universe point, and LMU 10-9 winners. So they top the one of the pools. Gravity topped the other after they dispatched 8-6. Dispatched 8-6 and finished off with a big win over Ladybugs. So here's how the women's brackets shake out tomorrow. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We have Bristol versus Iceni and Sick versus Spice in the quarterfinals. The winner of Iceni Bristol will face Gravity, who topped the pool today, whereas the winner of Spice versus Sick will face LMU in the semi-finals tomorrow. And we will be streaming one of those semi-finals for you at 12:40 local time, and then the women's final closes proceedings at 4:20 tomorrow afternoon.
So we're going to get a post-game interview on the live stream for you. So Benji is now leaving the crow's nest and going to go snag an athlete from Bristol to chat through the But for now, let's look at some of the highlights from this match between Scram and Bristol. So confirmed, we are going to bring you some sideline interview action for post this game, but for now we're going to bring you even more of the replays, the highlights of this game. Enjoy. So we now have some sideline interview action as promised. Thank you for your patience. We have Natalie Oldfield, Valet Rodriguez, and a lovely coach. No, I think Solia Junk there. Benji, over to you.
Delighted to be joined down here on the sidelines. It is on. It is on. Okay, I'm going to turn it on.
Yeah, it's all good. Don't worry about it. Nothing we haven't seen before. Let's start with the basics. How did you find that game?
I thought it was really good. I think on O-line we worked really well through their zone. And yeah, just played it really patiently, had loads of free options deep, and we had our handlers were able to hit them. So yeah, I think on O we did really well in that game.
Do you want to talk about D-line? I thought on D, I think we knew what their play was going to be, and they're very known for chucking it deep and having amazing throws, and they did that sometimes, but I think we were able to stop it sometimes, and we were able to get those quick turns that we were also working on, and we've been working on some flowy offense as well, and I think that's shown in the D-line. So I think we're very happy as well with our performance.
Yeah, I mean, how many breaks did you get? 4? So D-line crushed it. D-line crushed it, I did.
In terms of today's performance, it's been a little bit up and down for you. Kind of where do you feel like you're at heading into the brackets tomorrow?
I think we're in a good place. We finished on a high, which is always good starting the next day. We're usually quite a second day team, I think, also a second half team, which is annoying because the games are so short. But no, hopefully tomorrow will go really well, and we still have a chance to win if we win everything tomorrow, which we will. So we'll see them in the final, whoever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's been obviously a long season already, going out across the pond to the States and potentially Euros in the future as well. How have you found kind of balancing quite a large squad with lots of international tournaments and kind of trying to keep everyone happy? I know it's a lot to distill into one question.
How to keep everyone happy?
I feel like we were quite happy to have a big squad at Worlds. Yeah. I feel like by the end of the tournament, the numbers definitely start dwindling by injuries and everything. So it's been nice to have a big squad, especially with such a long season, just to make sure that we still have enough people for every tournament.
Yeah. We have a good system, there you go, camera, to keep track of everyone who's playing and just making sure that everyone gets their time on the line as well, which has been really useful.
What's the plan? What's the plan for tomorrow? Have you got a particular goal in mind, or is it just take everything as it comes?
I think take everything as it comes, take each game as it comes, each point as it comes. Just play good Frisbee. That's what we want.
And have fun.
Exactly.
Enjoy it,
Always.
And if we win, that's a bonus.
Right, play good Frisbee and have fun, and generally find the wins kind of follow it up anyway. Excellent. Thanks very much for your time. Go and have a good time this evening, and we'll see you on the pitches tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Back to you in the booth.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us here today. ULTI.TV working to bring you UK Nationals / EUCR West. We have had a fantastic day filled with top quality games. I have been Lorca Murray. I have been joined by Michael Paul. We had Tom Stiles. We had Hannah Pendlebury. We had Benji Rees. Just an absolute smorgasbord of the best UK talent behind the mic and on the pitch. It's been a great day, but you know what? There's an even better one coming tomorrow. We got finals, semi-finals, qualifiers, all action all the time. So we will see you here for free, ULTI.TV YouTube channel. Catch you tomorrow.
ULTI.TV.
So there was